Hey everybody, my name is Asa Daniels, and I am the lead singer, guitarist, songwriter, and general man about town for Gooseberry. Gooseberry is an indie rock slash alternative rock slash some other kind of rock trio from Brooklyn, New York. The band is based in Brooklyn, but I myself, I'm from Long Island. Which is right outside of New York City. And I grew up in a big music playing family. So my great grandfather was a band leader who I believe wrote musicals with Ethel Merman. My grandfathers played instruments ranging from trumpet, clarinet, sax. My uncle teaches klezmer music, which is a traditional Jewish folk music. At a conservatory in New England. My cousins have a great band called Maybird. My father plays and sings. My sister plays and sings. My aunts and uncles, and so forth. So it wasn't so much a question of if I would get into that family persuasion, but just a matter of when. And that happened to be around the age of 3, when my mother gave me a very tiny guitar that I actually still have to this day, though I do not take it on the road with us. So having this great big musical family definitely influenced the way that I see the world and how I write songs. Although I think no matter what kind of family you have, you're going to be impacted by them as you're trying to figure out some sort of work that you want to bring into the world. In terms of my biggest influences, though, I think that it would be hard to ignore all the music I heard growing up. My father is big into the Grateful Dead and the jam scene, so I grew up with a lot of, Grateful Dead, Allman Brothers, the band, that kind of stuff. My sister was really into some of the grungier alternative rock of the 90s and the 2000s, so I got really big into, Green Day and Soundgarden and Nirvana and Pearl Jam, those kinds of bands, which I think obviously also have a pretty big mark on the music that Gooseberry makes. But I mean, it's a whole wide range, especially since I grew up playing jazz. I think listening to a lot of Thelonious Monk and Coltrane and figuring out how people like Bill Evans can impact how I write a hopefully catchy alternative rock song has been an interesting sort of experiment as I've gotten more and more used to writing songs that people are hopefully going to hear. Right now, Gooseberry has just finished up recording our next record. So we released our debut EP, Broken Dance, back in May of 2022. This new record, which will be called Validate Me, is coming out at the end of August of this year. Our first single, Swindle, is actually coming out April 28th. So I don't know when anybody will hear this, but if it's before April 28th, you can look forward to that. If it's after April 28th, you should go to Spotify or Apple Music or Tidal or wherever else you get your music and check that out, please. So, I think one of the biggest challenges of being a musician today, especially in New York City, I guess aside from paying rent, which I think is largely the biggest obstacle for all of us, is just that there is a whole lot of noise. I think there's always been a lot of noise, but I think that in today's world it can get particularly depressing, maybe just for me, maybe for others, when you realize that everything is so data-driven or metric-driven, such that many of the conversations that I'm having, whether it's with industry people, with managers, with other bands, it kind of just references the fact that, okay, you have to have a Spotify that looks like this, that has this many followers or this many streams, that, allows you to open a door to booking a venue in this city, which then maybe you can link on a tour with another band that may be able to bring you somewhere. I think that's probably been a hurdle for bands and musicians since the dawn of the music industry. But there's something about the quote-unquote democratization of access to all of this with the fact that I can just create anything from my laptop with GarageBand or Logic or Pro Tools and release it and have digital distribution to the entire world. Like, part of that is obviously freeing, and then the other part of it is like, wow, there's there's so much. How can anybody find anything, really? And then, of course, you're reliant on an algorithm, the all-seeing, all-knowing algorithm that's supposed to take in preferences for what you've eaten today and somehow factor that into the music that you might enjoy made by some dude in his basement in Australia or something. I don't know. I feel like there's many things to complain about with being a musician, and yet, like, it's still the most joyous and fulfilling thing that I think anybody can do, no matter how absolutely, like, life-sucking the, like, nitty-gritty of it is. The still creation and then performance of it to a large crowd, to, you know, just like a group of sweaty, excited people who want to bop around to something that you made. There's still nothing that quite compares to that. What advice would I give to my younger self? I think, well, so I had a band before Gooseberry called Baked Goods that started when I was around 15, 16, somewhere in there. And we actually toured a lot and recorded a lot of music and toured a lot, especially when I was in college. We did like a 7-week tour in 2015, which was awesome. It was such a great learning experience that was so important for me as a human, as finding my independence, but also just understanding how any of this works. But I think if I could go back in time, it's something that I still joke around with my co-founder from Baked Goods, my buddy Dan Janis, what we still joke about a bunch is, man, if we had only realized that, like, social media and content, no matter how cringy, is kind of like the whole game. Like, we were so bad at even just, like, taking pictures or video and putting something up for some kind of consumption that, you know, we really believe that the music itself still holds up. And I'll often go back and listen to some of the recordings we made and feel really proud about it. But unless you were in our immediate friend group or, you know, any of the colleges we played, like, it's unlikely you would have heard of Baked Goods, because we simply just didn't lean in hard enough to feeding the algorithmic beast. You know, there's something that's, like, daunting about it. There's also something that like smacks of the unnatural nature that is interacting with the digital medium, when all you want to do is create something that you think is pure and good and be like, okay, people should now just want to hear it, right? And the reality is that no one's ever going to find it, and it will wither on the vine unless you put some kind of effort into the promotion of it, particularly through social media. And I think that that's something that I tried to course correct a bit with Gooseberry, where we actually built up a pretty big presence on Instagram. We're still nowhere near as good as some of our friends are at that kind of promotion. And a lot of it is my fault, because I simply just can't bring myself to be on these apps 24/7, even though I know I kind of have to be. But I think that there is still, like, a happy medium that I wish I could have told my younger self for Baked Goods. Oh, interesting. In terms of unconventional mediums, for Gooseberry, I think we've kind of stuck to the conventional stuff. I mean, we've played some really cool shows. I think that, you know, we end up playing a lot of brewery shows, which may be a bit unconventional for, like, a grungy indie rock band, you know, that's used to playing in loud, divey clubs in New York City. But I think that our music actually lends itself well to that kind of audience, playing like a 3-hour set with improvisational type of music. You know, we've also played the main stage at a NASCAR event. So we can actually, you know, we can fit in to a whole lot of different crowds, and I think that's pretty interesting. But I don't know that we've done anything super unconventional. I do think that for the Swindle music video, I'm trying to use some unconventional, quote-unquote, new age technologies to come up with something to make it feel slightly dystopian, but I guess I won't give too much away on that right now. When We are recording music, at least to date. It's generally a road-worn song, meaning we play a lot of shows and we're constantly writing, and we're very fortunate to have a really nice rehearsal studio in Greenpoint in Brooklyn, where we can hone in on each of the parts, really figure out what makes the song tick and what will really connect with an audience, especially since a lot of the music we wrote came during the beginning of the pandemic, where obviously all of live music was shut down. That was kind of right as we were first releasing music. I think our first song came out in April of 2020. And we had nothing else to do but to, throw on some masks, go to our studio, and try and make some more music that, in a world where things would open back up, we could play it to somebody. And fortunately that happened. And, in May 2021, we started playing shows again. And we still have this deep reservoir of music that has been tested first in the studio and then out in front of audiences, that by the time we actually get to the recording studio, as we just did over the last few months for this new record, we kind of already know exactly how it's supposed to sound, what the audience likes about it, and what we want to bring out. That said, when we're recording, it's such an interesting headspace to be in, because we think we know a song, and then we're in the studio and we're like, oh, I didn't realize that part really sticks out in that way. I think there's still an act of creation that's happening, even though you know the blueprint of it. And then there's a last bit that's really interesting, which is, okay, now that I've gone from playing the song in the studio with just in practice to then recording, from playing live in front of an audience, then recording it, and then now playing it live after recording it, it's just all of a sudden it's like a new person, right? Or it's your friend who you grew up with, and then you both went away to college, and now it's been a year, and you come back, and you're like completely different personalities. There is something about finding or refinding what that song is to an audience now that you've known it so intimately, and then seen it in an entirely different light. The best reaction that somebody has had to our music. Let's see. I guess there are a couple of reactions. Look, if anybody has anything moderately positive to say about the music, that's already the best reaction that I can ask for. I guess a couple of things come to mind. One, people tend to shout "goose" at the shows, which is always fun. I feel like that creates some sort of a sense of community. I'm all for that. We had a buddy of ours make us a rug, like an actual rug, made it with his bare hands. That's awesome. And then lastly, I think one of the cooler things was for the tour that we went on in the winter. We toured with our friends Cab Ellis in January of this year. We brought a yearbook. So just a blank yearbook, a blank notebook. And every stop of the tour, we just asked people, we just put it out there. And while we were on stage and around, we just leave it at the merch table, and people would come up and write in it. Sometimes before the show even happened, most often after the show, after we had played. And so being able to flip through that yearbook and see all the different reactions, that we had some people write poems, we had some people draw really interesting pictures, we had people just write comments like, so happy I heard you, like, a new band that I love, that kind of stuff. We've also had, people write like, you guys seem like dicks, but like in the best way, which I also think is totally fair. What I hope that people take away from listening to Gooseberry, I guess is, oh man, I don't know. I don't know that I even get far enough to think that there's something to take away. Like, I know what I put into a song, but I think that whatever I think the song is about really doesn't matter, right? It's about where the song meets you at a certain time in your life and what you think it means to you then. I know that people who come to our shows feel, the energy of us, just three musicians on stage making a hell of a lot of noise. I know that I want people to believe that this band has put in work to earn your time and your listenership. I know that when I'm writing lyrics I am trying to write the best set of words in the right order that I possibly can. Because again, if I have your attention for 3 or 4 minutes, I want you to have gotten everything out of it. It shouldn't just be a catchy hook with, vapid lines. And vice versa, it can't be the greatest prose, but music that makes you want to scream and turn it off. So I think that if I can get nothing else out of you, I'd hope that you felt like we had earned your time. I think that's pretty much it. Just a reminder, if you made it this far, my name's Asa. We are Gooseberry. You can find us on Instagram at Gooseberry Band. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, all of those places. We have a Substack, which is like an email newsletter called the Gooseberry Gazette that we highly recommend you sign up for and join our little community. It's a crazy group, but I think you'll find it a good time. And yeah, again, like I said, if you're listening to this before April 28th, 2023, keep an eye out for our new song, Swindle. If you're listening to it after April 28th, 2023, please go find our song, Swindle, and listen to it. And hey, hopefully we'll see you at a show. There's going to be quite a few of them, in the year 2023 and beyond. Thanks so much for listening.